translational skills that I took from my PhD to academia to industry. I would say the first one is collaboration and networking. That's one. The second one is being documentation, right? Like being clear in your documentation. And the third one is the passion of learning. Like you want to learn, you want to keep learning. Don't think you know it all.
Yeah, so welcome to this group session. It's like an enormous pleasure to introduce my friend Rocio to this group. I think Rocio has probably been the first person I really interacted deeply when I transitioned from academia to industry, probably 1999-ish timeframe. And she was at Merck. She had, like she said, she just joined Merck herself from Hahnemann. And when I joined industry, it was like a completely new world at that time, and I was learning a lot of different things. And so Rocio, even though she was reporting to me at that time, said that she was teaching me so much about existence in industry because she'd been there a couple of years. And so she and I used to work together with her team on many different vaccines. She's done phenomenal work in terms of understanding the statistics of what it takes to develop vaccines. That I think, if I can take Rocio's words, I'll tell Rocio, that is what we learned together, like the statistics, the
design of experiments. Yeah,
the design of experiments and how statistics plays a role in understanding anything that you do. Not just the vaccines, but life in general is all about statistics. So that was the beginning of statistics for both of us, I guess, at some point. And then Rocio went on to do some fantastic work over the years. She'll tell you her experiences at Merck. She's a role model. She's a role model not only for the scientific community, but obviously for her Latino community, and that is huge. It's all of us play, unbeknownst to us, we play a role. People are watching us, as we look at this. So I think she plays an enormous role, and I think mentorship is something dear to her. So I know she's been doing that for many years, maybe first unconsciously, but now more consciously. So I don't want to go on, but Rocio, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Narendra, and for the opportunity. It's actually my honor. And I have some slides, but I want to say that the most inspiring mentor I had in my whole career, 23, 24 years, has been Narendra. And I'll tell you why later, okay? So I'm going to share my screen. I just put together a few slides to guide us through the discussion. And I'm going to start with my origins. As you heard, I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and actually outside San Juan, in a very small town. And I graduated from high school from a very small school. And the first thing I have to tell you is that when I graduated from high school, I spoke no English. My English education in Puerto Rico was very limited. I could read it, I could write it, but I couldn't understand it. So that on its own has been for my entire life my biggest challenge, right? Coming to United States 40-something years ago was to go to college without having English as my native language. Yet I got a scholarship in high school that enabled me to come to United States to Ecker College, which is in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I did my BS, my Bachelor in Science in Biology. It was my first step, right? United States, my first step into formal education. And I really enjoy every minute of it. And I knew I wanted to do more. I wanted to do something different. And my last year in college, I had one of my mentors helping me to design a course around immunology, this new thing that I just reading about, immunology, that will enable me to apply to an immunology program for a PhD. So, and that's what I did. I taught myself with a book, immunology, my last semester in college. And from there, I applied to a few schools here in Philadelphia. And I ended up in Hahnemann University. It's also called Medical College of Pennsylvania. Hahnemann is in Center City, Philadelphia. And at Hahnemann, I did my PhD focusing on mucosal immunology. So it was a nice hybrid between immunology and genetics. This is the time back in the, I would say, that will age me, but 1990s, where we were doing a lot of the microsatellite mapping and epitopes to really look at how genes that control resistance to different viruses, to different infections. So I had the opportunity to look at mucosal immunology and then look at the genes that control resistance to Candida albicans. That was kind of my main focus. So it gave me a lot of the tools around not just the genetics and doing molecular testing, but also doing quite a bit of cell work, right? With immune transfers, working with mice, and all the great stuff that you learn. And this is the one thing I will say about my PhD. It really is the foundation, not just scientifically, but the foundation in terms of how you collaborate with your colleagues, how they see you, how you set up networks, the passion that you put into the science, your publications, right? This is where everything starts. And you want to start with the right foot, and you want to use every minute to build, the foundation for the rest of your life. So I enjoy all 5 years at Hahnemann. I had fantastic mentors and advisors, and I felt that every day I was learning something, and after that, it will be the cherry on top of the ice cream, right? It was best times of my life. So then the one thing when I was about to graduate from Hahnemann, to be honest, I wasn't interested in a postdoc. And like, if I have to do a postdoc, I will do a postdoc. I will dive more into immunology and whatnot, but I would like to have a taste of what is industry, what is pharmaceuticals. And I started applying to, at that point, wasn't even, I don't even know it was online. I don't even know how I sent the application, but I applied to GSK, I applied to Pfizer, I applied to Merck. I also applied to a few postdocs, including UPenn. And Merck called me at that point for an interview, which for me was like, wow, they called me, right? And I didn't even know what this job will entail. It had the title of Senior Research Immunologist. I'm like, what immunology? This is kind of what I do. So here I go to the interview and I present my thesis. And I think the one thing that I brought into this interview, where there were at least, they said, 400 or 500 applicants to this particular job and 4 final candidates. But what I think it differentiated me, what I was told, is the passion that I brought into my presentation. So I presented on, again, my thesis, mucosal immunology. I talk about adjuvants, and I try to make a link between the work that I did in mice, right, transgenic mice, and all that work to the clinical space, right? Because this is a clinical position where evidently I was gonna be designing for this position bioanalytical essays, working on vaccines, biologics, human clinical trials. So I try on my mind to figure out what I learned, how is that applicable to what these people are doing? And going into this interview, I have to say, and this is a long time ago, it's not like now that everything is so easily accessible, but I try to get my hands on the people who are gonna interview me. What is the research? I will read every paper they had published. I will read the discussion to think how do they think? What challenges they're looking for? I will also study Merck, like that group, what do they do? What's their vision? What's their mission? So So I was super prepared and scientifically, but also I want to show them that I will bring a new set of, I was a new set of skills. And this is 22, now 23 years ago, almost 24 years ago, when I walked into Merck. And I spent at Merck, as you can see, more time than most people can imagine, right? 22 years across many different roles. I just put like 4 spots here, kind of to show you a little taste of how the titles mean nothing, but I indeed spent the bulk of my career at Merck in a very specific area. So if you think about that T, where is the breadth and the depth, my career at Merck was a lot about the depth, right? So I started in the beginning by establishing molecular labs. So I had experience in my lab in Hahnemann, obviously with equipment, more the technical at the bench work. So I was given this budget to buy equipment and set up a PCR lab to design assays to measure antibodies to rotavirus. That was the first lab that I designed at Merck. And soon after, I was asked to work in Gardasil. And this is before the even phase 1 Gardasil. So they were giving me a team of scientists that will be developing and validating these bioanalytical assays for Gardasil. And these assays could be serology assays, right? Just measuring antibodies. It could be cell-based assays, obviously PCR assays for efficacy. But what it was very unique about this work that I had no experience, and that was my first taste of like pharma, is that this is all in a regulated environment, right? And that's a big word. What is a regulated environment? And we in academia, during my PhD, you learn to document, your experiments and trace them and all of that. But here is a whole different ballgame, because the data that you generate to support any of these potential products has to meet certain regulations and quality compliance. And there are auditors, there are other professionals within Merck that will be judging the quality of your data and your team's data. And if your data is not documented according to standard operating procedures and regulations and guidelines, all that can just go to the trash. Everything you have done in the lab might be meaningless. So I spent a lot of time, my first years at Merck, really, reading, learning about documentation and expectations around we call it GXP because it's not good manufacturing practices, but it's a flavor of that, where you have to accurately capture the data. And for many of us, that can be very frustrating because you want to get to the science right away, right? You want to go and make this huge impact and okay, oh, I know how to develop an essay. I can do this, I can follow, I know the science, and that's great. But the problem is you have to stop and you have to spend probably now 80% of your time in trainings and documentation and reviewing documentation and addressing documentation. It's not fun, for at least wasn't for me, but it's a must-have of the job. And it's one of those things that when you realize, you see from outside, wow, that, this person developed these essays and leads to vaccine licensure, but what you don't know is all these parts of the job that are not that, wow, amazing. But you have to do them in order to be able to deliver your final product. In this case, was these essays. And so I keep saying essays. For some, I don't know if all of you know what an essay is, but really is, think about an ELISA, think about a PCR, but these are very robust, validated to very high standard assays with critical reagents. And we had an organization that was just about this. Imagine hundreds of people just working on the development and the validation of these assays that enable clinical endpoints for vaccines and for biologics. But for vaccines are even more important because this is in part of the licensure of the product. So when you look, for example, this vial says pneumococcal vaccine. This is the one vaccine I work over 2 decades, my baby. You will find that there are some serostatus cutoff and some particular validation parameters associated with the licensure of that vaccine that enable the indication of efficacy. So that was because of this validated assay. So if we change that assay or there's any issues, you can tell that we will have to go back to the FDA and redo the assay. And that takes me to my second point. So I talk about compliance in the lab and documentation, and that's always gonna be a big part of what we do as scientists. Doesn't matter where you end up in industry, but the second part is the regulated, meaning your interactions with regulatory agencies, either within United States is the FDA, the EMEA in Europe, the CDE in China, name it. Every agency has their regulations. And for me, that was a big part of my job as I became a subject matter expert in this space of vaccine and biologics, bioanalytics. I was able to contribute to authoring documents that will be submitted to regulatory agencies. So as you can see, kept building my career, right? And moving within that space, using what I knew to build up and introduce myself into regulation, so the regulatory space. I introduced myself into the discovery space as well, trying to support more early stage. And at one point, not a long time ago, I had so many projects and so much history with Merck that I ended up having up to 23 direct reports reporting to me. And this happened because we reorganized the entire, they keep reorganizing. This is the one thing, this big industry, pharma, they reorganize and restructure, and they merge and they separate. But the one who has the most experience end up with all these people reporting. And what that did to me is that I had less time to do the things that I wanted to do in terms of the science, right? It was fantastic to be able to, you know, guide, mentor, and build groups and teams. But at the same time, I felt that that didn't leave me time to think strategically, right? To grow into what I can do with what I know. I spend all my time doing like one-on-ones, you know. So, you know, and that's part of the career. You find yourself in positions that you didn't ask for it, and you have so much to give, but you have to think, is that where I want to be at this point of my life? So here are some of the pictures. You know, a lot of my publications are around multiplexing, and the reason why multiplexing kind of drove my career at Merck is because for vaccines, most of the vaccines we develop are for pediatric indications, and pediatrics children have very small volumes of blood, and we have to test them across many antigens, right? Because you have to look not just at the vaccine you are assessing, but also you have to look at the effect to other vaccines. So we end up with multiplexing a lot of the assays that we put in our clinical trials, not just to increase the throughput, but also to save blood volumes. So a lot of that development, and that's when Narendra said the statistics, right? So that was another area where I had to force myself to learn, to love, to embrace, because in order to be able to develop these very robust assays with so many variables, you really need to apply statistical tools that allow you to look at all the variables simultaneously and the impact. And statistical DOE, design of experiment, is one of those tools that I say had because you had to embrace to be able to be more effective in generating data and also to be able to have more robust data. And so that's the multiplexing and the statistic piece. So you can see the type of titles. I was a director, then I moved from that ladder of management, like I said, and like I want to be more strategic. And my last role, the last 2-3 years at Merck, I actually was retired senior principal scientist. And what that is that I was leading the strategy for the bioanalytical assays across vaccines and biologics. I spent quite a bit of time. Actually, I went to China twice. And right before COVID, in January 2020, I was in China presenting to the CDE, that's like their FDA, the bioanalytical proposal for this vaccine here, Pneumo, that Merck licensed last year. So really looking for opportunities to grow. It would have been very easy that I sit there with 23 direct reports. It's for me at that point, that was too comfortable, right? So I needed to step out of my comfort zone and really, what else can I do in this organization? And that was the challenge. Everything was in one organization. And the time came where I like, enough, right? I need to step out of my comfort zone and broaden my leadership skills. So I'm gonna stop there before I take you to my next stage, and to see if there are any questions, anything you wanna hear more or less.
Yeah. So Rocio, I think it might be easier if you do your next slide, and then we can close and we can unshare. Excellent. And then maybe better. Yeah.
Excellent, absolutely. So again, it came to a point in my career where I felt I could be doing what I was doing, right? There's always plenty of work, always plenty of projects. I could be doing that for the next 10 years, right? Until I retire, 15, whatever. So, but I wanted purposely to step out, like I said, of my comfort zone and see if I could, instead of continue going deeper into my area of expertise, which I could, and then get promoted that way. But that wasn't what I wanted. I really want to broaden, again, my leadership. So what I did, I reflect on my career, and I'm like, okay, what can I bring to an organization that is not necessarily bioanalytics, because this is a very specific area, right? In the universe of areas in pharma, and I say pharma because Merck is sort of pharmaceutical, J&J have different sectors, but what skills have I gained? What I'm good at and what inspire me, right? And what really drives me? And that's the question I say, my first advice, always ask yourself, what drives me? What inspired me? And to me, really, what inspired me was people. I have to say people. I can and I love bringing people together, people internally, external people, and aligning them in one path forward. That's what I did in the lab with my 23 direct reports, right? So that's one thing. I love again, collaborations. I love leading cross-functional teams. So that's when I was called from J&J. I didn't even look. I was called with this role that is called Solution Development Team Leader. It's very interesting. I have to tell you, this role sits within J&J, an organization that is outside pharma. So J&J has 3 different sectors, and those are medical devices, they have consumer, and they have pharmaceuticals. And what is beautiful about this area, I put it here first, you can see the 3 sectors: consumer health, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices, right? And what is really nice is that this area called World Without Disease Accelerator / Lung Cancer Initiative is a space that sits outside and leverage expertise across all those sectors. And the main goal here, the main driver here, is to really intercept disease at its earliest stages, right? So doesn't matter if it's type 1 diabetes, if it's lung cancer, it's pediatric allergies, celiac disease, some very unique complex diseases come together with the same theme of how can we detect and diagnose, intercept disease and its earliest stages, so we can really eradicate these diseases, similar to the whole concept of vaccines, right? How you can prevent to start with. So going back to my particular role, so they were looking for someone who can take a compound or a solution, and I'll tell you what a solution is about, and can really design the strategy from beginning to end, leading a team of experts, right? So really leading the design, the implementation of a strategy from the very beginning all the way through post-licensure. And when I look at why did they reach out to me, the words that stood up is quality, regulatory. So in my resume, in my LinkedIn, which is what got me this job, I have a little blur in the top of kind of a summary of my skills. Yes, bioanalytics, which is like what I did for 22 years, is there. But what other skills, what other things I learned, I also capture in there. And that's what this hiring manager noticed, that I had experience leading teams from different functions. I had experience with regulatory. So my point here is all those experiences, even when you're publishing, even when you are in the lab and you're working with another lab with reagents, or all of that counts. All of those are collaborations, and you should call them out when you go to look for that job, because they need people who not only are scientists, they need people that can collaborate, they need people that they can think outside the box. And so this particular role, they call it the CEO of the asset, right? So the asset meaning it could be a drug, it could be a vaccine, but in my case, it's a solution. It's a solution to a problem. So for example, the unmet need is being able to predict malignancy of lung cancer nodules, right? In a non-invasive. So I developed with external partners a radiomic that enable us to do that. So I don't know anything about radiomics. My background is not oncology. And here I end up in lung cancer doing radiomics. And how I do that, I leverage other people's expertise and bring it together, right? So that's kind of the sauce, the secret sauce. So I only have 2 more slides, and they are about that secret sauce. What is the secret sauce to get the job and the role that will become your dream role, right? And you make it your dream role. There's no such a thing like dream role. But so the first thing I will say is collaborations are critical. So through my career in Merck, I always found it's easy to go and do experiments. Not easy, but it's easy, it's comfort, right? To do experiments with your colleagues. It's something you know how to do. But to go outside your comfort zone and establish a collaboration with another lab, that requires some skills, right? Particularly when they are academic labs, you need to have some more unique communication skills. They are more about the science. And, you know, if you are in pharma, they feel a little bit, it's very intimidating for them, right? We coming into an agreement with big lawyers and big, you know, they don't want to collaborate with pharma, but we need them. We need these people for many reasons. They have the intellectual property, right, of some of these reagents, some of these technologies. they actually are reference labs. Like the one example here, University of Alabama is the reference lab for pneumococcus, which is the vaccine that I worked for many years. Part of my strategy was to show that my platform works in a reference lab. Why? Because the FDA will give it more credit when it comes from a WHO reference lab and they don't have any bias. So it's to my advantage that I establish a collaboration with a lab like this, maybe that I put a piece of equipment in their lab that we can share samples and they can run the validation, we can publish, right? They get paid, and now it's a win-win situation. But it's not just that easy. It's more about the connections and the get to know the people, going there in person, hold their hand. You know, they don't want the bureaucracy of pharma. They don't want that. And scientists, you know, a lot of us, you know, we're like, okay, well, we need to get this done, and this is the way to do it at Merck, and it doesn't work with this type of people, right? You need to use a different set of skills. So having those strategic collaborations in the discovery research space when you are in pharma are very important. And if you come from a PhD or a postdoc, that you already have some of these connections, it makes it even easier, right? So someone mentioned they work in UPenn. How great you know someone in UPenn that works in radiomics. That you pick the phone and say, hey, you know, would you like to talk about potential opportunities? So it's very important. Then as you move through the development of that compound or that solution, there are different stages where you're gonna have to think more translational, more about the regulatory piece, even the reimbursement. And so I give you an example of a company that I'm working with now. I won't say the name of the company, but it's a company that takes CT scans, right, to predict nodule malignancy. And having a reimbursement code for that is so important for me to be able to sell that for the J&J solution. So you have to think about, this is a journey, right? It's not just the one piece, discovery, validation, licensure. It's a journey. How you get this medication to patients, how the healthcare system can pay for this. Here, we need a reimbursement code. And all these collaborations that you make through your career, and is what's gonna lead to your success. Nobody's gonna tell you, oh, collaborate with this person. No, you have to really reach out to people and get to know what they can bring into your program. So collaborations. The second one is publications. And this is very important. I mean, publications really positions you as an industry expert and as an industry leader. It's more than just having your work published. It's really about showing to your company, to your colleagues, and to the international, everyone, that you are a leader, you are an expert. That opens doors. I put this example, this white paper that I just published maybe 2 years ago, is part of this workshop called Workshop on Recent Issues of Bioanalytics. I never really in my life was part of the workshop, and somebody invited me like 3-4 years ago, and I ended up presenting just by chance. They love it, and next thing I know, they invited me to co-author a white paper. Every year they invite me. And it's a white paper that the authorship is like 50 authors, but they put my name in the second row. That's what I put, or the first row actually, and the third author. And my point is because I took the initiative to draft the vaccine essay validation piece. So sometimes you just have, you have so much to do, but you're like, you know what? I'm gonna do it, not because I'm gonna get something out of it, because it's a challenge, but it pays off. Because now I have this white paper, and that shows not only that I can publish, of course I can publish, but it shows that I publish in collaboration with colleagues across many industries and regulators. This is WRIB is sponsored also by regulators. So just find opportunities to publish. And back to what I said in the beginning, Naren being a great mentor. Naren was the first person who taught me, when I joined Merck, you need to publish all this work. I was so in depth with my science and my team and my problems. And I did not always say, I don't have time to publish. It's too complicated, the data. But when you have to publish, right? For all the reasons I said, this is what is gonna show what a leadership you are, how a leader. So just to close, I do have interest outside of work. As I say, I mentor Hispanics. HISPA stands for Hispanic Inspiring Students. Achievement really is to have high schooler students embracing education. That's pretty much what it is. At that point, we have many Hispanic high schoolers around in this area that they just drop off. And so just seeing a role model is very important. I have a large blended family. My daughter is 13, my son is 22. He just graduated first in his class in St. Joseph in Philadelphia. And I have here pictures of me teaching high school students, mentoring, you know, and all that. So that's it. That's what I brought here today.
Thank you. So Rocio, if you can unshare, then maybe we can.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I have a little bit of water, if that's okay.
Yeah. So Charu and Vikram, you can sort of coordinate the questions.
Yeah. So please, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and then I'll call your name and you can ask questions, or you can also post questions in the chat box.
So I think while everybody thinks of a question, you've shown us that right from the beginning. So for example, you're from Puerto Rico. English was not one of the languages that you were confident in. And we can hear you. It's probably taken you like 20 years or something to get to this point, to be this confident, but it's just like a mark on where you've come. I want to know about how disciplined you were in all of your achievements, and if like there was a particular routine that you followed, that I have to practice these things and this is how I'm going to divide my day.
Beautiful question. No, that's a great comment and question. So it has been indeed the biggest challenge in my career, right? To be able to not just communicate, but communicate in a way that I can say something very succinct, right? Like in the smallest amount of words and get to my point really quick in a meeting before I lose the audience, for example, right? Or stand in front of a big auditorium. I'm not afraid of talking, but I lose my confidence if my words don't come out right. I would like to explain this big mechanism or this big project, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, when somebody else, that's not an issue. It's so easy for them. And so the way I taught myself is practice, right? I mean, to me, when I go and read and I know what I'm talking about, that's when my confidence shows. So for example, in this new role, you know, I had to present to the vice president within 2 months on radiomics. And I'm like, I don't know anything. He's gonna ask all these questions. And I had to present on the strategy. And I know I have heard him being very technical. So what I did, I mean, I really literally printed every paper, because I took it with me everywhere I will go. Every paper, every publication, understand the science, right? Because we scientists, doesn't matter the accent or we have the same vocabulary. And I know I'm talking to a scientist. This vice president is actually a scientist. I'm like, well, we have something in common. I'm not a marketing expert or any of that, but I can talk science. So just really understanding the ins and outs of how this thing was developed. Actually, what I did for this, I met with a lot of the people working in those companies. I audio taped them with their permission and listening at what they said. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. And really being able to script my presentation. I mean, this is what we do. We script it, but knowing the background, understanding the science. So when the time came, I was able to very clear communicate my points, but when he will ask questions or somebody will, I will have answers. And if I didn't know the answer, that's fine too. But you need to put a lot of time. And it's so worth it, you know, because the reward of you being able to communicate and being able to enable something, and the language should never be a barrier, never. But definitely a lot of practice, not just what you say, but mentally, right? What are you talking about? The strategy, the science, all of that comes together.
So what's the favorite part of your job and how do you maintain the work and life balance?
That's a great question. So for my current role, I mean, what is the most exciting is really that in where I sit in J&J, I can leverage expertise across the entire J&J. So across all the sectors. So the most exciting part is that I can actually reach to people in pharma, in medical devices, in consumer health, and really leverage all of J&J innovation to enable the solutions that we're doing for lung cancer. And that's something I say it like that because in Merck, I wasn't able to do that. We were in a bubble, right? It's a different role, a different structure. But where I am now is indeed truly cross-functional, cross-sector. And that excites me. That's when I, pick up the phone and say, hey, do you want to join my team? And can I have you presenting on this topic? So there's no barriers. So that's most exciting for me. Yeah.
Hi. So my question is, how is your role going to be changing with consumer science, health, branching off, becoming its own organization, and medical devices and Janssen we're just sticking together?
That's an excellent question. So, I'm not saying if it's changing, but definitely it's gonna take a different spin. I mean, one of my goals as I joined J&J was to transition some of the solutions or tools to consumer health. And now, like you said, they're spinning out their own company, a new company, and we're gonna have to figure out how to work with that new area. So my role is definitely gonna be impacted because that's part of my role, right? To leverage that expertise. And so I'm gonna need to figure out how to build that trust, right? Since they are not part of the same company. I will need to figure out what are the new leaders, what is their vision and mission. How do they prioritize projects, right? What kind of resources I can take and I can get and what they need from me. So it's definitely anything like that impactful. I can see a role like mine where I bring everyone together will be, yeah. But great question, Leah. And maybe we should connect and see.
We should.
Akshay, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your background. I'm not sure if I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So as a team leader, and I think you brought up a lot about collaboration. So as a team leader, how do you encourage your team to collaborate cross-functionally? And I'm sure like a lot of the people that you may work with or work under you might be a bit more reserved. So how do you encourage them to reach out and try and collaborate more?
I think that's an excellent question. And it's not easy, right? Because every function has their own objectives, their own agenda, right? And then here we are bringing all of these people together and hopefully aligning them. So a few things that have worked for me is first building that trust, right? Like getting to know the people. You need to start with the people. It's sometimes if you go right into like, okay, this is what I need from you, it's just, you're not gonna get the person motivated. You need to understand the people, how the people work, right? There's different tools like insights, tells you a little bit about the personality that we can do as a team and learn from each other, right? Our communication styles. but also what motivates that person, right? If you're representing, I don't know, regulatory, what are your objectives? Is it to get this product, you know, our package together? Understanding that to incorporate into the team objectives. There has to be a motivation for you to be able to spend time into this project, above and beyond your manager telling you you have to do that. So really bringing the team together is also about having a vision that we all develop, right? Like, are we clear on where we want to go with this, and the mission, how we get there? So spending some time in the beginning, getting to know your team, getting to build trust, maybe doing some ice-breaking exercises, maybe, you know, getting to understand what are each other objectives and where we want to be by when. And it's not easy. It takes time. People write many times that the leaders want to just go into action. Let's just get work done, and it doesn't work like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Rocio, I have a quick question. You mentioned during your presentation about the publications. So I don't know, like I've always heard that in industry, it's always difficult to publish your work. I mean, whatever you are doing as compared to academia. So, I mean, how difficult it is for early investigators to publish when they're working in the lab as compared to when you are, you know, a principal scientist and then you are writing like reviews and like that.
Excellent question. That's a fantastic question. Many questions that are great. So I will agree with you. I absolutely think it's much more challenging when you are in industry to publish for many reasons. Some of those is because of the IP, right? Intellectual property. You cannot just put sequences out there. Some of it is because you're waiting for a patent, or some of the work needs to be patented, so it cannot be published. And some of it is because competitive intelligence. If you publish what you're doing, your competitor is gonna just build on it, right? So there are many reasons why not to publish, but there are many ways that you still can get your name out there. And that's when the creativity comes. You know, for example, when I joined Merck, I could not publish any of the essays I was developing because people would know what vaccines we're working on. But what I did together, and I think Narendra is maybe in this publication, we did a review of memory T cells. We're doing that, Narendra. So we went out there and we read like, I don't know, hundreds of papers in memory T cells and put some spin around vaccines, and boom, our name was out there, right? At that point, that's the best we could do with what we had. Soon after, some of these vaccine products started going into clinical trials, and the clinical teams will be doing publications. So I will be reaching out to the clinical team. I will say, how can I contribute to these publications since we developed the essays, right? Can we help analyzing the data? So you really need to reach out and see who is publishing, because at that point, they really own the data, the clinical team. And usually they will give credit to very specific portions that enable that trial, right? Like the regulatory piece or the epidemiology component, or in this case, the essays. And so throughout that, I mean, as you gather experience, you also can participate doing white papers, right? I mean, you can be very high level, and you can talk about how we enable clinical trials during COVID. You know, I don't know, I just came up with that. I mean, you don't need to say anything about your clinical trials, but you can talk about lessons learned, right? You know, and there's so many ways to put your name out there, but it is indeed more challenging when in pharma. And sometimes you just have opportunities where you just, you know, find the right thing, and then you just put it out there. And it's sometimes also in Merck, because 50% of the work could not be out of Merck, external, they have internal publications within Merck. So they have a review committee within Merck, and you get published internally, and you can put that in your resume as well. And when you go into an interview, you explain, you know, we could not publish this outside, but here I have evidence that I was able to lead this work and get it published. And hopefully one day we get a patent, which is even better.
Okay. So, Rocio, I have a rapid fire round for you.
Okay.
So it's going to be 10 questions and you have to be quick with your answers. And I know that you're a passionate person, so I'm very sure we're going to get some good answers.
Oh.
It can get a little difficult, so you can say that you don't want to answer a particular question.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so my first question is, did you come into science at the right time when a lot was left for exploration? And if you came in as a PhD today, would science still excite you?
I will say for the first one, yes, definitely still a lot for exploration. And if it will be today, I will say genetics, more in-depth genetics, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And 3 translational skills that you took from your PhD in academia to industry.
Translational skills that I took from my PhD to academia to industry. I would say the first one is collaboration and networking. That's one. The second one is being documentation, right? Like being clear in your documentation. And the third one is the passion of learning. Like you want to learn, you want to keep learning. Don't think you know it all.
So you mentioned your journey in Merck, which was very expansive. So 2 things that change when you transition from being a scientist to an executive in the industry.
I'm sorry, Sharu, 2 things that, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So 2 things that changed when from you being a scientist to becoming a manager or an executive position.
Yes, so the first one is delegation. I had to learn to delegate. Cannot micromanage when you keep going up, right? And the second one is more of strategy than execution, right? It's easy to get comfortable in the execution part, but stepping back and looking more at the strategy, where we want to get. Yeah.
Okay. Was there a particular reason that you were with Merck for over a decade, or?
Yes. So I would say I was comfortable. I felt very comfortable at Merck for 22 years. I felt I had it all there. Yeah.
So as a person from a different cultural background to mainland USA, what are the 2 advantages that you think you have?
Yes. So I think I bring an outside perspective, right? When you come from a different culture, you definitely bring an outside perspective. You think different. And the second one is I feel like I appreciate more the little things. I'm not saying that Americans don't, but I feel like I appreciate more the little things because I had nothing. And I came, and where I am, I did it building up. So I appreciate everything, every opportunity.
So would you rather be a mentee or a mentor?
That's a tough one. I would say 50-50. Definitely mentor. I feel like at this stage, I do want to pass right what I have learned, life lessons. I've seen a lot. So yeah, I would say mentor at this stage.
Do you think cancer is truly difficult to cure, or is this pharmaceutical hype?
I think it's a challenge that we all own it to work at it. Yeah.
Does the image of your workplace in media affect your work or emotions for the company?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Does the image of your company in media affect your emotions or your work in that company?
It does. It does. I think industry, pharma, and the media and the politics and all of that impacts very much what actual projects you get assigned, you know, what things, what content you can work and all of that. So absolutely.
Okay, so now a little bit of a dicey one. are women better at science or do they overcompensate?
I don't think we're better or worse. I think we are, we bring different perspectives like anything, right? Women, men, we all bring different perspectives, not just to science, to everything we do. And I just want to say, I wish there would be more women in science. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to mention again that I don't know if everybody was here earlier when we were talking to Rocio before we began this chat, but she's also with the Girl Scouts and a lot of other girls who she inspires with her story. And I think that's your step in bringing more women into science.
Yes. Okay.
And my final question, and I kind of know the answer to this, but what do you prefer? Honesty, diplomacy, or preparedness and response?
I would say, I would say honesty, just being honest, just being transparent, just speaking up, right? In a polite way, all of those in the right set and tone, but be honest and speak up and go for your dreams. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Richie, I'm just going to interject, but I'm just going to say thank you for these amazing responses. But yeah, so maybe we can, Virender, I think we can still continue some questions if people have, right? Yeah. Please continue if you have more questions. I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, but maybe you guys can ask a few. Sneha, how are you doing? She's in Canada, on the other side of Akshay. Yeah, maybe she can't hear us. Well, Rocio, I think one thing that I know that you do this, but I think you've helped a lot of young people grow in their careers, right?
Yeah.
And somehow people keep reaching back to you for advice. Like, what advice do you give these people who are sort of looking in the mid-career and they're looking to change? Like I'll just name somebody, you and I know, Olivia, for example, right? I'm sure keeps coming back to you, although she's not been working with you for more than 10, 15 years, right?
Yes. Oh, and that's, I think, back to the question that I was asked by Charu, what kept me for so long in Merck? I think looking back, it was a lot of that, right? That I had the opportunity to have so many younger people reporting to me and giving them advice and mentoring. And the type of, what I will tell these people is that, I mean, nothing is easy, right? Nobody got to where they are easy. There's always obstacles. There's always gonna be other people that are gonna be the glass half empty. There will be managers that are micromanagers. There will be everything. You're gonna find it all. It's just the way life is. It's a microbiome. But at the end of the day, you just have to believe on yourself, and you just have to have that passion for science and know that you are changing human health and in different ways, right? Doesn't matter if you're the one cleaning the lab or you're the one, making the drug or we are here for a purpose, and you cannot let all that background derail you. Just stay focused on where you want to go. That's it. Yeah. And the reason why I say that, Naren, is because a lot of the younger people joining the pharma and joining the lab, they get frustrated very quick. They get disencouraged. They have, I don't know, a challenge with an experiment, or don't have the visibility they want, or they don't get the whatever they need, and they kind of give up. And it's not about that, right? It's a journey. It's a journey. It's not like just one milestone or two. It's a whole journey.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Rocio, I think there is one question in the chat box from Sneha. Should I go ahead and read that? Oh
yeah, no, I see. You had 23 reports.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great question. So when a lot of these reports, many I actually hire, many others I inherit, right? But what I have found is that it's kind of easy to learn skills in the lab, right? I can train anyone. People learn very fast and whatnot. But what is challenging is how they work with each other, right? When they are in the lab for many hours, you know, they're tired, they're very competitive. Industry is very competitive, right? You're rating people against each other, right? And calibration time comes, and then suddenly all these things come up. Well, he did this or she didn't help me with that. I need to have people in my lab that are team players. That's the first thing, right? I need to have people that really look after each other. Those people, they are the ones who are gonna be able to really, you know, motivate the others and really get to that final end goal. The people who are just complaining and just very competitive and those, I don't want those reports to me. It's just too much drama. We have so much work and so many things to celebrate that I look for team members that are inspiring and they are supportive of each other. That's it.
I have based on one comment that you made, I have a question for you related to that. So, you know, how do you deal with either your direct reports or your colleagues or your peers in your company who've been there for 20 plus years and people who've been there for 2 years? Very different kind of interactions, and you've had many of those, right? So how do you deal with very diverse people?
Diverse people and experiences, absolutely. And so like now I'm in, like when I was at Merck, I was there for 20 something years, and I will have new people coming in, right? Even new managers coming in. And now I am the newbie, right? And I have people there that have been for decades. And I mean, and the way I would say not deal, but the way I work is I just come who I am, right? I'm not gonna change. I am who I am. I'm bringing all of me into my job. I can learn from everyone and vice versa, right? And there will be people who feel like, well, you just got here, you know, there's all dynamics and you just have to, don't even look at that, just concentrate on who you are, what you bring in, what you can provide, how you can give your best, how you can contribute, how you can collaborate, how can you create a culture that is where you want to be, right? And yeah.
And I'm dying to ask this question, Rocio, to you, but it's a little sensitive one, if you don't mind. And, but it's real, and because this is something that you told me, and this has stuck with me for a long time. Cry in private and smile in public.
Yes. Yes.
Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, we all have gone through all kinds of crazy things, right? At work and outside work. But what people, when you go into work, particularly a meeting, into your colleagues, you know, in an open, you want to make sure that you show that positivity and really, you know, you be honest and transparent, but that you are not, there has to be some line in between your personal life and what you might be going through. And when you go to work, you just have to give it the best. And it might be sometimes you're not up for work, you know, and that's okay. That is absolutely fine. But when you are out there, you know, with your colleagues, with your managers, with your direct reports, just bring the positive part of that you have to offer that day, that given day. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question, Naren, but it is exactly it. I mean, it's not easy, right? Some days, you know, we all have issues at home and kids that are sick and parents that are sick and many different circumstances. And, you know, how do you bridge to your work? And it's something that we are working on. We work through our entire lives at that.
Thank you so much, Rocio, for being here. You have given so many insights about the industries, and I'm sure it's going to be helpful for everyone present here. And of course, after we put this on the social media, a lot of people are going to view it, and then they are going to get a lot of help from this video. So once again, thank you so much. And yeah, please go ahead.
So thank you, and thanks Narendra and everyone for joining, and it's very inspiring what each of you are doing with science and outside science, and even more that you are, looking for guidance and tips and reaching out. So don't hesitate to reach out to me and ask some of these questions offline. I would love to share my thoughts.